Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Smason, and welcome again to NOLA Theater Talk. This is a project of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, which we have, and we host these talks on Mondays and Fridays. And we also broadcast to the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, as well as my own YouTube channel, which is also known as Music Lovers 169. Tonight we have a very, very interesting discussion. Primarily dealing with the subject matter of Louis Armstrong. Of course, many people know Louis Armstrong, also called Satchmo after Satchel Mouth, also called Dipper Mouth originally on the early years. Many people also refer to him as Pops in the later years. But Louis Armstrong was a icon of jazz who became an ambassador of jazz all around the world. And with us tonight, we have Jo Morel. We're going to bring her in just a little bit. Jo has written a play about Lil Hardin. And Lil Hardin, of course, may not ring a bell for a lot of you, but Lil Hardin was Louis Armstrong's second wife. And she was instrumental in as a pianist in being with him at some of the really very important formations of jazz back in the 20s. When they were married, and we're going to talk a little bit about her influence on Louis, and I'm sure his influence on her. And to help us along with that, we have a very special guest coming up from the Louis Armstrong House Museum in Queens, New York. But first off, before any further ado, let me go ahead and let me bring in the playwright, Jo Morel. Jo, welcome to NOLA Theater Talk, and again, I want to thank you. What is it that we have right behind us in the background right now?
That's the house where Lil and Louis lived in Chicago. The house still stands. It's called the Louis Armstrong House. It's rented out, I believe, as, I don't know if it's an Airbnb or what it has become. Ricky might know.
Well, we're gonna bring him in a little bit, but
yeah.
In terms of the whole idea of doing this play, give me a little bit of background in terms. When did you first start researching it? What interested you most about this project?
Well, I had been still am with the Jazz Club of Sarasota for a couple of decades, and I'm the PR director for their annual festivals. And I noticed over the years how few female instrumentalists there were, and it always bothered me. And so in 2017, they had a festival dedicated to Dick Hyman. I don't know if you know his name. He's an NEA jazz master.
Of course I do, yes.
Yeah, and he brought out the Jim Cullum Jazz Band. He was playing with them. He played live from Riverwalk, and he played with them so much they called him the eighth member of the band. And so they were kibitzing on the stage, and they mentioned Lil, and it just clicked. I thought, that's my play. And, well, actually, I was going to write it about Lil and Mary Lou Williams and Iola Brubeck. And by the time I got to the green room, I thought, not too complicated, I'll just do Lil. And so I went to the green room and I drank champagne with Jim Cullum, the jazz band, and Dick Hyman. Came home and turned on my computer and I typed in Lil Hardin Armstrong. And there was a photo of the Jim Cullum Jazz Band and Dick Hyman and a tribute to Lil Hardin Armstrong. So I thought, okay, that's a sign. And the next day I called Dick Hyman and told him what I wanted to do, and he was very encouraging. This was March of 2017. And from that point, then I knew as a white person writing about Black people that I wanted to be authentic. And so I went to West Coast Black Theater Troupe here in Sarasota, which is a well-known and well-respected theater company. Mm-hmm. I asked if they would be my artistic home for the creation of the play. And that was Julie Leach and Nate Jacobs. And I then wanted a director. And one of their directors who does a show a year there is really based at the Goodman. His name is Chuck Smith, also African-American. And I wanted to use him because I knew and liked his work, and it's a Chicago story, and he's from Chicago. Uh-huh. And so we all had a meeting, Nate, Julie, Chuck, and I, and they all liked the idea. And they said, if we like the script, we'll go ahead with it. Can we see the script? There wasn't one. And so I hurriedly ran off and wrote Act One, and it wrote itself because the story had been in my head for so long. So they liked it, and we went ahead from there. And we did a table reading. We did a workshop production in conjunction with the Sarasota Jazz Festival, and we booked two performances and had to add a third. So we played to over 600 people with just a script in hand, workshop production, and then we went on from there. I had gotten a grant from the state to do a full production.
And at that point, though, was there any music with that?
The music was in my head. I picked the songs.
Mm-hmm.
Dick helped me with some of them, and because I've been with the jazz club for so long, I got to know a lot of the nation's leading musicians. Fortunately for me, one of them had just moved here, Randy Sandke, who is an amazing Louis Armstrong performer, among other things. And so I put together a list of songs and I gave them to Randy. We talked about what tempos and how much of each song, and he selected 6 musicians. We formed the Little Louis Jazz Band, and we actually recorded the music before we went into rehearsal. But
Wow.
because it worked out so well, the timing was beautiful.
So in other words, in order to put this thing on, and the reason why is that the performance rights are so expensive. The music may be in the public domain, but the performance rights that are retained by either, I don't know if it's the estate of Louis Armstrong or whoever owns the performance rights, Sony Music or whoever, that they really make it almost cost prohibitive for anybody to do this, correct?
Well, absolutely. I went to Universal Music Group for permission to play 30 seconds of Strutting with Some Barbecue and 30 seconds of Just for a Thrill. That was just for the composition. We have our own musicians. It was a $38 ticket price in a 200-seat house, and they wanted $150 per performance per song for 30 seconds. So that would have been $300 each time we did the show. And so we went with all public domain.
Right. Yeah.
But then Randy got inspired, and he went and composed 3 songs especially for this show.
All right, well, before we get into any more about the music, etc., I want to bring in our second guest, and
Sure.
First of all, before he comes in, what are you drinking tonight?
At the moment, I have champagne.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Very nice. Is it a particular vintage or a particular brand of champagne, or is it
I don't
French?
know. My husband bought it, and when you said you were getting drinks, I said, "How about opening this?"
I got you.
I don't know.
Do you know if it's domestic or if it's real champagne from France?
I don't know. All I know is it's not as old as I am.
Okay. Okay, we'll go with that. In any event, yeah,
it's a younger vintage than I.
Very nice. Let me bring in our next guest again. One of the foremost authorities on Louis Armstrong, and again, I believe it's correct to say that he would say Louis Armstrong, but many other people would refer to him as Louis Armstrong. And I think the world really probably knows him more as Louis than Louis. But whenever he would say, this is Louis Armstrong, he would always use that pronunciation. I'd like to bring in from the Louis Armstrong House Museum none other than Ricky Riccardi. Ricky, welcome to NOLA Theater Talk, and again, thank you for being with us. Ricky, you are the curator of the Louis Armstrong House Museum in Queens, correct?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I'm in charge of the archives. So, we have the House Museum, which is our main operation. That's Louis and Lucille's house. But then we have the world's largest archives for any single jazz musician, with 13 separate collections, including all of Louis's stuff, his trumpets, his tapes, his scrapbooks, and all that. And that's what I get to do for a living. It's pretty crazy.
I know so many people that have been to the house. I have not yet gone, and perhaps on my next trip to New York I will, because it is a fascination for me as well. But being here in New Orleans, we have to understand, of course, that Louis Armstrong is a figure here that we have Satch Fest for. We remember him, but really he left New Orleans in order to make it big. After he left, he really came back a scattering of times, not that many times.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people the years he spent in New Orleans are the most important years of his life. I mean, that's where he learns about music and women and food and racism. I mean, every day of his life was spent reliving and talking about, singing about those years in New Orleans. But when he got out, the way he phrased it once was he got northern-fied. And so after spending some time in Chicago and Harlem and eventually Central Avenue in Los Angeles, he found a different way of life, and he maintained that love of New Orleans, but it was like a tough love. He would refer to it as a disgustingly segregated city. The few times he went back, he encountered all sorts of racism. And then in 1955, the city passed a law prohibiting integrated bands from performing in public, and he stayed away for 10 years. And he spoke bitterly about it, that his band was accepted behind the Iron Curtain anywhere he wanted, but he couldn't go home because he had a mixed band. So it's definitely a complex thing. And then, of course, while he's staying away, the city bulldozes the home he was born in, even though the New Orleans Jazz Club was trying to save it. So it's really kind of a touchy issue. And that's why when he passes away, he is a New Yorker at that point, buried in Queens, the museum's in Queens. But I do think, the city has patched up its relationship. Like I said, the airport is named after Lewis, the festival. I do think, his presence looms large over the city.
Yeah, I mean, he is it's very much a part of the fabric of the city, as anyone who actually lived here their whole life. So I think when we talk about Louis Armstrong or Louis Armstrong, whichever way, we tend to think of him as our native son and our favorite son. And anybody who says differently, we're going to have a fight about it. Now, I know you in Queens feel a little differently about that, but that's a different story. When did you first find out, though, about this project that Joe was doing on Lil Hardin? I mean, was this something that you had suspected or heard about, or did you know about it before she called you, or what?
No. Joe came to me, I guess it was probably 3 years ago, I would say, something like that.
That would be about right, because I started it in March 2017.
Yep.
That's when I stared the research.
There we are. Now, was that when you started the research?
March 2017.
Yeah.
No, this picture was just last July.
Okay, because that's a beautiful picture. Now, I don't think Louis Armstrong, he looks to be more than about 18 or 19 in that pig.
You would think he's actually 31 in that picture. Yeah,
wow.
Eternally
you would have
youthful.
fooled me. Very youthful, very youthful. And again, not to be outdone, I have my own picture there as well.
Good time. I wish I was there this summer. That was heartbreaking.
But you were there. And that's one of the things everybody knows, that we didn't have the Satch Fest like we normally do, but that you actually recorded your lectures in advance, and they were shown over the internet. People could tune in and whatever at their leisure, I guess, and whenever they wanted to, and check that out. That's fantastic news. I'm sorry, though, that you weren't able to make it down here. We would have loved for you to have been here. Joe, you've been to New Orleans, haven't you?
I lived there, actually, for a year. I encountered Lee Harvey Oswald. I had to look at the white and the black drinking fountains. I used to get on the bus and sit in the back because I enjoyed listening to the maids talking.
Wow.
It was very segregated. It was very bad. I was pregnant at the time with my first child, and the Birmingham bombing happened, and I packed up my baby's clothes, and my then husband had a vacation coming. We went back north, and I never went back. I said I can't raise a child.
The bombing was in what, Alabama or?
Yeah, but it didn't matter. Yeah. There was a brand new church there, St. Francis Cabrini. It was new then. I think it's gone now. And we baptized my baby there, and it was so lovely. And then the priest there was doing classes for First Communion, and he had them segregated, classes for the whites and classes for the blacks. And so the final practice, he let them come into the church together. He had the whites sit up front, he had the blacks sit in the back. After classes were finished, he went back to the rectory. A contingent of fathers came, he opened the door, and they beat him up. And I just encountered things like that all along. It was a fascinating year, it was an interesting year, but it was a scary year too.
Now, was that in Metairie or was that in Orleans Parish? I'm trying to figure out.
Wait a minute. I lived in I just forgot the name of it now. Parkchester. It's gone now. Parkchester Apartments. We lived by Lake Pontchartrain.
Okay.
And my first husband worked on the space project, the Saturn 5-1C, I guess it was, out in
the Saturn. I guess it's Saturn 5, right?
Yeah, and he was a naval officer.
Oh,
And so he had to go to reserve meetings in Algiers, and he was instructed that he could not wear his officer's cap driving through because he would be identified as a Yankee and he would be at risk.
wow.
And also, he worked for Boeing and discovered that the Boeing employees weren't allowed to use certain floors' bathrooms because they were an integrated company. So we found it at every turn. It
Yeah.
was
Well,
really
those are
bad.
the bad old days. I do remember several things about it. Now, Ricky, I think you're a little younger than I am, and I know I'm a little bit. I'm not going to say how much, but a little bit younger than Joe, maybe. So you have a better remembrance of that than I do. But I do remember being on the streetcar and having the little placard that we would move, and I do remember seeing 4 different bathrooms. Male, female, and then there was male, female, colored. And so I never did quite understand that whole thing. But it went away a lot quicker than I probably would care to remember. In other words, it was there as a child. I would make the inquiry and things of that sort, and then all of a sudden it really wasn't in there anymore. But I know that during that time, a lot of people fought for equal service at the diners and things of that sort. So I know that there was a lot of that going on. I was just too young to actually know it, and so I'm old enough to remember some of it, and thankfully not a lot of it. It probably impacted your life a lot more, Joe, than mine.
Well, when I was pregnant, everybody, pregnant or not, has these days when you don't feel like seeing anybody. And I was going for a prenatal appointment to the Oxner Clinic
Yeah.
at the Huey P. Long Bridge. And I went in, and there was a waiting room that was all quiet and by itself with plants all around it. And I went and sat in there and started reading a magazine. After a little while, I looked up, and the room had filled, and I was the only white person in there. I had stumbled into the black waiting room. And of course, I stayed there, but I was just surprised. I never quite got into that mode.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you had to go through that, and of course, even more sorry for all the people who had to contend with it. But luckily, I guess for everybody's purposes now, we're in a better space. I hope there's still obviously some systemic racism that exists, but it's not as I guess in your face as much as it was in terms of those sorts of things. And again, there's always room for improvement. There's nothing perfect in our society nowadays, and I guess a lot of the protest is pointing that out. But I know the way it was. I know the way it is now. It's markedly improved. Do we have a long way to go? Probably. And can we make things better? Yeah, I'm sure. So I'm not trying to be apologetic for those old times. Yeah, at all. But
no, I'm just thinking now in relating these stories, which I had forgotten.
Yeah.
I think maybe subconsciously they fed into my writing this play about Black people, because I can't say I experienced it firsthand, but I did secondhand, and I could see what was going on.
Ricky, I wanted to kind of get you involved with this too, because much of what Joe has written about was, I have to say, really heavily researched. What I really was most impressed by was this was not, oh, let's just write something about Lil Hardin and Louis Armstrong and let's sort of put them in these situations, and we'll throw a couple of songs here and there, we'll weave it together, and whatever, we'll dazzle them with this and that. And I mean, this thing is really heavily researched, so much so that there's a lot of exposition and a lot of things that are being told about the life of Lil Hardin, but also about the life of Louis Armstrong. Now, did you get a chance? You already saw it, correct, Ricky?
I wasn't there. I've seen the video. Joe shared the script.
Yes.
But let me tell you right now, we get a lot of researchers at the Armstrong Archives, and usually they need a lot of guidance. We get people who show up on day one, and they're like, I don't know where to begin. Joe knew where to begin, had already begun, and I don't think I needed to, really, like, there was really nothing new that I could show her or surprise her with. I mean, she had dug so deep in every recess of the internet, every book, every newspaper article. I was happy to offer, guidance and suggestions, songs, and this and that. But this is a serious researcher, and this is a seriously researched work.
I want to remind everybody that if you'd like to ask a question of Joe Morello or Ricky Riccardi or me, or any comments that you might want to make, not just a question, please feel free to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. It'll allow you to post your name while you're seeing the show on Facebook. And again, we are right now showing it on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, which is our support page for the theatercriticism.com website, and of course on my YouTube channel as well. So those are the three spots where to look at it. Later on tonight, if you're a Facebook friend of mine, and some of you are, you will be able to see this as a premiere from YouTube. I'll be sharing it again, so anybody who missed it tonight will get to see it all over again. So I know Ricky and Joe are both friends, so they can, if they've got mutual friends who are friends of friends, I think they should be able to see that as well. So Facebook is kind of nice about that as well. So in case anybody was late getting to the bus, so to speak, to get on here, you'll be able to see it again later on. I want to go through some of the historical photos that we have, because understanding, I think, the background of what Joe has researched is really essential. So as the play talks about, first of all, when Lewis first came up to Chicago, he was already married, correct, Joe?
Correct. They both were.
Okay, and yeah, I was going to get to that too. But so they both were married, and so he was actually having to deal with a wife who was living in New Orleans from afar, from a distance, I guess.
Well, he only dealt with her as much as he had to, as little as possible. She was a hooker with a knife in her shoe, and in my play he says she scares the bejesus out of me. So I heard one story. He went on the riverboats with Fate Marable, and I heard one story. I think he said it at one point, that part of the reason he did it was so that Daisy couldn't get at him. Is that right, Ricky?
That's true. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
he was a kid, and he was scared of her.
do you know why he married her, or was it a threat, or was it he just wanted a wife for companionship?
Well, I'd hardly call her companionship.
I mean,
Ricky, do you have an answer?
Ricky, do you know any more about that?
I mean, I think, yeah, they probably had some fiery passion early on, but I mean, Lewis grew up fast, I'll put it that way. And so, for him to quit school in 5th grade and go to work, and then he adopted his cousin's child when he was about 15, 16 years old, and then he marries Daisy when he's about 17 or 18, he was a grown man, that's for sure. And so he writes about Daisy that, that they had their fun, but I mean, she was so crazy, and him waking up with knives pointed at his throat and everything else, that it was not a match made in heaven.
No, it sounds like the opposite. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
If I could, we're talking about this piece being well researched and serious. I want to say that it's really a lot of fun. There are laughs in it. There's a lot of upbeat music. And the facts are there. And as I'm revising, and as you mentioned, exposition, they're going to be pared back a bit, but the fun's going to stay there. Oh, wait, you saw it. I'll let you comment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I saw the thing. As I said, I was very impressed with the work. And again, I know it's sort of in the formative stages still, that you're still looking to get some other people attached to it, perhaps, that you're working with some people to develop it, and trying to get some other people to come aboard. But
Exactly.
it's already been done. You did it recently where?
Sarasota, Florida, in January.
In January. So luckily you got in by January, right before the pandemic hit. I understand that there was another production dealing with Louis Armstrong as well, that I heard about,
Right.
that was about to bow in Florida, and it didn't make the cut. Apparently, they were getting ready to go.
It was a Miami new drama in Miami Beach. It was a multi-million-dollar event where the backers hoped it would go straight to Broadway. I think they had 15 equity actors and 12 musicians, and had the rights to tons of very expensive Louis Armstrong songs. They opened for previews on March 3rd, and they were supposed to have their official opening, I think, March 13th.
Which was the day everything shut down. Yeah.
And so they spent all that money, they did all that rehearsing, and because they hadn't officially opened, they never even got a review.
Wow.
And so I don't know what's happening with it.
Well, that's show business, unfortunately. I mean, look at all the people on Broadway right now. You know this as well as I do. And Ricky, you're up there. I mean, all the actors are out of work. All the technicians are out of work. All the people who are theater owners are out of all the rent that they'd be collecting. Now, although I don't know, maybe they are collecting the rent for the empty houses. I have no idea. Let me go back and take a look at some of the historic pictures. And again, I think we have to thank you, Ricky, and also Joe for some of the things that you supplied me. I'm not quite sure which ones came from Ricky and the House Museum, but some will be pointed out. Now, that's Louis Armstrong, and that's Lil, right?
Yes. And
And
that was after she put him on a diet,
aha.
as you can tell.
And I guess he always liked his red beans and rice, because I know he signed his letters that way. Red beans and rice are yours, right?
Yeah,
That's for
yeah.
sure.
Now that's the same picture. That's a close up of the same picture here, but that way, and again, I see that's from the Louis Armstrong House Museum. Now
Right.
that one you can see that really is of an age, is it not? I mean, look at the shoes.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. Look how tiny she was,
Yeah.
85 pounds, and so powerful and so big for that tiny woman.
And what do you think it was that attracted him to her or her to him? Was it a mutual
Well-
attraction?
Well, my theory, and then Ricky can correct me, my theory is that Louis always had strong women telling him what to do, and he had left his mama, his beloved mama, behind in New Orleans, and here was Lil ready to step in. Louis was initially shy and uncertain and insecure, and Lil was able to boost all of that he needed to overcome it, and she pushed him. He didn't like it, but he got to appreciate what she had done. At one point, I put that she was aggressive, and it was part of what pushed them apart, I think. But Louis, I'm sorry, Ricky, what's your theory?
Yeah, no, I think that's really it. I always tell people Lil is the architect of his career, but I mean, she tells stories that she was not impressed in the beginning. That he was 226 pounds and he was, so country. The way he dressed, the way he
Yeah,
talked, and apparently he was giving her the eye. I mean, Lewis was always kind of a ladies' man. He was shy, I think, to approach her, but
yeah,
she had no interest. The way she told it was that it wasn't until King Oliver, who was their mutual boss at the time, made a comment to her that as long as Lewis stays with me, I'll still be the king. Then she began listening and realized what a talented musician he was. And then, one thing leads to another. They get married in February 1924, and just shortly thereafter, next thing she gives him the ultimatum. I didn't marry no second cornet player, so you need to quit King Oliver. And that was like, Lewis severing ties with his father. I think Lewis would have been happy being a sideman in Oliver's band for the next 10 years. But, I mean, Lewis had the talent. He knew he was great, and there's definitely an ego there. But at the same time, he didn't feel like, he needed to be the leader. He needed to be the superstar, get out of my way. He was just happy to be amongst the cats, and Lil was the one who recognized that this guy is special, made him quit Oliver, made him go to New York when he wasn't being featured properly in New York, made him quit Fletcher Henderson in New York, made him come back to Chicago, billed him as the world's greatest cornetist, made him copyright the songs he used to whistle around the house, and that kind of cracking the whip, gives us the Louis Armstrong we have today, setting up the Hot Fives and Hot Sevens and all the records that kind of changed history. And you take Lil out of the equation. Would Lewis have made it as big? That kind of talent, I don't think you could have bottled it up and kept it inside. But
Yeah.
you never know. Some people don't get those
yeah.
breaks, and Lil.
But that's a line in my opening scene and in my closing scene. If Louis hadn't had his Lil, would the world have had its Louis?
That's
Good
it.
question. Good question.
That's
Let
it.
me pull up one of these historic pictures that you had, and you mentioned King Oliver. Is he in this one? I don't remember. No, he's
No,
not actually. That's
that's
going to
the
be
Hot
with the Hot
Five.
Fives. Yeah. So
Yep.
I know that this is the one I meant to grab.
There we go.
Now this is what?
That's 1923 in Chicago. And it's mostly almost all New Orleans musicians. Johnny Dodds on clarinet left, and Baby Dodds on drums. Honore Dutre on trombone. Lewis is in the middle. Oliver's next to him. Lil at the piano, and Bill Johnson holding the banjo over there in the corner. So yeah, that's the band that that's the only reason Lewis left New Orleans. He said he would never leave unless King Oliver called for him, and Oliver sent for him on July 8th, 1922. And so that's part one of Armstrong conquering the world, and then Lil happening to be in that band. That's part two, and who knows how history would have changed if you take out any part of that equation.
That's fantastic. We had a comment. I'm going to see if somebody wanted to say hello. Ken Salvo.
Hey.
Oh, Ken was in my band.
Hey, Ken. That's great.
He's happy to be part of that band, creating the music for the play. So again, anybody who wants to also similarly put up a comment or ask a question, feel free. Go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and you can put that up. Let me go ahead and that group there is King Oliver's band. That's the
Yep.
group that we're talking about. So when Louis formed the Hot Fives, which is the group we saw before, this is the Hot Fives as well with Lil Hardin.
Correct.
Was that a departure for him? In other words, was he leaving King Oliver's band at that point, or was he doing this on the side while he was still with King Oliver?
Yeah, he left Oliver in 24, went to New York, played with Fletcher Henderson for a year, and then he came back to Chicago in November of 25 and joined Lil's band. And Lil was the one who kind of drummed up interest with OK Records in Chicago, that Lewis had been a sideman now for about 2 years recording for OK. And anytime he was on a record, the record sold well, but his name was never on the label. Nobody really knew who he was. And so she got OK interested in making records with Armstrong as a leader. And so Lewis went back again. Pure New Orleans devotion. He gets Kid Ory to move from California to Chicago to join the Hot Five. Johnny St. Cyr on banjo, Johnny Dodds again on clarinet. But the Hot Five never performed regularly in public. They did a couple of benefits and things, but that was not Lewis's day-to-day band. That was just a recording studio band. Lewis and his New Orleans friends, they would all contribute songs. They would write originals. Lil, would sometimes act almost as a de facto music director. And they didn't know they were making history. They didn't set out to change the world. They just wanted to get that flat payment. And if they brought in an original, they got more money, so they can have a good night on the town.
Wow.
But meanwhile, Lewis is a sideman. He's working with Lil's band in the beginning. Then he joins Erskine Tate's band at the Vendome Theater. He joins Carol Dickerson's band at the Sunset Cafe. So this whole period, these records, which become kind of the Bible of jazz, he's a very well-regarded, very popular sideman on the south side of Chicago, just at the beginning of the superstardom, which would come a few years later.
A funny side story on that. Louis would go and record anywhere. Like for the Hot Fives, they were getting $50 a session, which they thought was really pretty cool. So at one point, he went and recorded on another label, and OK caught him and called him in. And he said to them, "It wasn't me on that record, and I won't do it again."
So again, anybody who's out there wants to make a comment, feel free. We're listening to you if you are checking things out right now. NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group. We also have you as well on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, and hopefully those of you on the YouTube channel are checking that out as well. Again, my name is Alan Smason, and I'm glad to have you here tonight. We are hoping that you'll check things out tonight with Ricky. And Ricky, you've graciously agreed to appear tonight for the first of 2 spots. Because next Friday night, we hope to have on, I'm still trying to iron out all the details, Lisa Miller. Lisa Dawn Miller is the daughter of Ron Miller. And, this is something that I had not heard about. She revealed it to me in talking about something else. And it's going to be about a musical that her father, Ron Miller, the popular songwriter, who wrote things like Yester Me, Yester You, Yesterday, and Signed, Sealed, Delivered for Stevie Wonder, and Touch Me in the Morning for Diana Ross. Also, was a lyricist for Someday at Christmas, which we hear, that Stevie Wonder had done, and several other people. He did this musical on Louis Armstrong's life, and just an original thing that you've never heard about that I had been apprised of it. And I said, Ricky, have you heard of it? You said, no. We're going to reveal that next Friday. So I'm hopeful that people who are here in New Orleans who are interested, in theater as a musical as it is, and interested in Louis Armstrong as his life as a historical I guess you might say, look at his life. Maybe not accurate, because I don't know it'll ever be as accurate as you, Joe, what you've done with this. But again, we're going to talk next week with them. So we're hoping that Lisa will be on with us, and you, Ricky, will be back. And it's just coincidental, I guess, that it happens in the month that Louis Armstrong was born, August 4th, right? So it just happens that we're going to be doing all this in August, and just coincidental, I'm sure. But as I say, sometimes a lot of things don't happen coincidentally, that things happen for a reason. So I always believe that. Joe and I met actually many years ago. We just happened to be at a conference together, and
Humana, in Kentucky.
And I think we might have been in an elevator going down or something. We sort of introduced ourselves, and so I've known her for several years. And again, it was just we happened to be in the elevator at that time, and again we got to see each other. So again,
well, you've been a help with the research too. I contacted Alan because he had a beautiful piece he's the editor of the Crescent City Jewish News, and they had a beautiful piece about Louis and the Karnofskys, which I drew on. And then he put me in touch with Bruce Rayburn, who had done some interviews with Lil. And I did want to say, when we talk about all the Louis Armstrong plays that are floating around, this one is about Lil. The focus is on her.
Yeah.
It's Louis there, of course. But
and we're going to see some pictures from it too, so we'll see that for sure.
Yeah.
But
and we forgot to mention that the music goes with that play, that pre-recorded music. And Ken Salvo reminded me, it's phenomenal jazz music.
You took 6 musicians, a sextet basically, right? And you got them together. You told them what music you wanted to have. You told them what tempo, and they, with Ken and I guess other people got together with them, but they arranged it the way that it was supposed to be arranged.
Randy did it. Randy did the arranging. Randy sang.
And so I mean, it's not often that somebody who is a playwright will actually, cover the costs of recording the music for this so that it'll be historically correct. I mean, we also understand the other underlying reason was that it was prohibitive to try to get it done legitimately through the regular circles, so that you needed to have your own performances. But
and I could have gotten musicians who would play for $50 a session, but Louis Armstrong and Lil deserve better than that. And the guys we used are really tops. They're very good.
And it's the same way here in New Orleans. I mean, not every person who's a talented musician is a member of the union, but most of them are. Most of the ones that you use, for the carnival balls, etc., that we have, most of the really good musicians who are there are members of the union, and it's for a reason that they are. I mean, they are professionals, and they ply their craft. Unlike a person who does it on an occasional basis. And so you're right. They really should be recording the music properly with the right kind of musicians.
Well, Randy was so specific about wanting to be authentic that he got different piano players to play his music. We brought one in from Orlando who did some of the Scott Joplin, and what else did he do? The Jelly Roll Morton tunes. We had some in Sarasota who played some of those pieces. We had another one, Bob Page, who was a stride pianist partly, and he did the Lil music. And so it was a 5-piece band, a jazz band, but then there were other elements too, just for authenticity.
Yeah.
And, Randy said, no, he's very good. This person's very good, but he doesn't know the style. I'd rather use these people. And so this is what we got.
So I'm not sure who this is because, again, I remind everybody, if you're going to leave a comment, the best thing to do is go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give permission for StreamYard, which is the platform we're using tonight, to allow them to use your name. And that way we'd know that the trumpet player who's there is probably a very famous trumpet player. I'd like to think so. Let me go ahead and throw up a couple more of these pieces that we had to show. Some of the before I get to some of the actual photos that were taken from the production. This is one that you put up. Now, this is a Sidney Bechet trio with Sidney Bechet, Lil Armstrong, and Zutty Singleton. Now, this was, I guess, many years after when she was on her own.
Yes, in Paris.
So she did not go by Lil Hardin anymore. She used the name Armstrong.
She used both. Whenever she used Lil Hardin Armstrong when she first married him, and then when they split, she found out she would get an audience as Lil Armstrong, or Lil Hardin Armstrong. And her mother said to her, then why not drop the Armstrong? She said, I paid for that name.
Oh,
At least in my play, she says that. I don't know
yes.
if she ever really.
I can well imagine. And this is who we're talking about. For those of you who hadn't seen, that's not a really great picture, but the picture is a little small, but you can get an idea about some of the, I guess, diminutive nature. As you mentioned, she was only 85 pounds.
Yeah, and that was just for a thrill. And Ray Charles topped the Billboard charts with it. I don't know how many covers there were. The Ink Spots. Who else, Ricky? I don't remember.
Oh, I mean, that's
one of her songs was done by the Beatles. She has 150 songs with ASCAP, I believe.
Really? Wow.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
And nobody knows her, and that's why I wrote this play.
And of course, as I mentioned behind us, those of you who are joining us a little bit late, let me have Ricky. I'm going to bring you right back in, Ricky. But we want to see the steps. This is where Lil and Louis Armstrong lived. But this is also where Louis Armstrong lived. As I bring Ricky back, that's the Ricky. That's a place where you know very well, isn't it?
I sure do.
So now when people go to Queens to see the museum over there, that's the Louis Armstrong House Museum. I assume that there's a self-guided portion of the tour that you have. That
no, the tour is a docent-led tour because
everything. It is docent-led.
Yeah, everything in the home is original, and we have runners on the floor. It is a museum. Sometimes people get a little relaxed when they're in there, and we have to remind them that don't sit on the couch. Don't touch anything. But no one's lived there. This is why it's pretty special. No one's lived there since Louis and Lucille. Right now there are talks. They're trying to get the John Coltrane house up as a museum, and there's other great. It's all great stuff. Coltrane deserves a museum, but he died 54 years ago, and multiple families have lived there since then, so they would be recreating it and making it look like what they thought it looked like. This is like stepping into a time machine. People come to the Armstrong house, and it's like nothing's changed. We get people who visit who might not even be huge jazz fans, but they want to see a perfectly preserved late 60s kitchen, the blue kitchen and the wallpaper everywhere and all that kind of stuff. So
and it's true that he did have matzah in his house, that he kept matzah.
He sure did. Yep.
He learned that trick from the Karnofskys, right?
Yeah, man, Alan, we need you to reprint that article. I don't know if you've seen it on Facebook, but there is so much misinformation going around about Louis and the Karnofsky family. I saw newspaper in Akron just published an op-ed about it. And, it was like this wonderful story, and we want to promote the Karnofsky story, but people making all these crazy claims.
There was even a book that came out that the Carnos, who were the descendants of the Karnofskys, that they were promoting, called A Horn for Louis, and I read it and I said, this is not right. This is wrong. And so there's a lot of, but it's a kid's book. So here's the story. Do we want to bring the kids to understand who Louis Armstrong was and give them a taste of what his music's about, or do we want to give them the real history? Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there. That yes, you're right. When I did the story, I was very particular about learning exactly where certain things were that I could prove and certain things that not. And that's why it was so interesting years ago when they found out, one of my friends found out that Louis Armstrong was not born on July the 4th, 1900, as he contended, but actually was on August the 4th. And we now accept that as the actual date in the records for the church that he founded. But who would have known?
Right. That was discovered by the late great Tad Jones, and that was
wonderful guy.
Yeah,
and he's got a book that I'm still thinking about maybe going to help finish writing it, because it got started in it, and Bruce said that nobody will ever be able to finish it because it's just a monster and totally undocumented here and etc. But if I ever have the time and the energy, I have energy. Right. I just don't know whether I have the time. I just really would love to do that, because that is such a fantastic endeavor. I didn't ask you what you were drinking tonight. I think you said it was seltzer, but I wanted to make sure.
Black cherry seltzer right here.
All right. Ricky's got his, and I have my Royal Salute, which is 21-year-old Chivas Regal. I decided I'd have a little scotch tonight. Joe, you're having champagne, so you got us all beat, because you're classier than.
But it's only a year old, probably.
It's okay. All right. Again, we want to thank everybody for being here. Let me see. We might have another comment that somebody had sent. And okay. So the person who was the Claire Conti, she isn't famous. Well, she is here in New Orleans. Claire is very famous as a teacher and again a wonderful instructor in music, and we see her around a lot. So thank you, Claire, for adding that. Yes. And again, anybody wants to leave a comment or ask a question of Ricky or Joe about the production we're talking about, which of course is Lil and Satchmo. And again, it is spelled Lil and Satchmo with an ampersand, no and. Although the website does have an and in it there. So originally it was Lil and Lewis, and you use the and there, but now it's Lil and Satchmo for the play, right?
The internet won't let us use ampersand, so we had to spell it out.
All right. Well, that's okay.
Yeah, when we get back to the production, I didn't mention the director who had to take over when my initial director got very sick.
Yeah. Okay. So let me start up. I want to talk a little bit about this is the play, and again, this is not Lil. This is another actress, but this is
May Brady,
and she's and again, they have a number of characters that are played by the females and the males who are in there who do double or triple duty in some cases. But that's the character who's playing Louis Armstrong, and then there he is again. He does a really excellent job.
He only had I don't think he had a full week to do it because the actor in the lead had to leave the role. And we moved him over from the ensemble. He had done it twice before in my readings, but still, he had to learn dances now. And we had added a lot of songs. And then we were one short in the ensemble and couldn't replace an actor at the last minute. And we sat, and in 30 minutes, 4 of us rewrote the play from 6 actors to 5. And it worked.
Now this is Lil and Louis there. Now that's now the actress you've got there. What was her name?
Marta Mckenna. She's wonderful.
And she came from where? She came from the.
She's from Sarasota. But she's been touring nationally, and we looked long and hard to find a Lil. I spent a lot of time on backstage and other casting places. And one day, Julie Leach from West Coast Black Theater Troops. Oh, I forgot. I had founded a small theater company here in Sarasota, and Marta had worked for me in a couple of plays. And Julie said, "Did you hear that Marta is back in town?" I was on the phone so fast, and it was justified. She's outstanding.
Another comment. Great show, Joe. And they even gave us a little shout out. Thank you
Ellen
very
Berman,
much, Ellen Berman. Yeah,
she's a friend. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah. So and again, we are proud to have this coming from New Orleans. We're really happy, that we're able to do that. And I know Ellen said Lil and Satchmo. She's talking about phase 2 of Lil and Satchmo.
Yeah.
So again, let me get back to a couple more of the pieces here that we're talking about with the show. Now, this show ran in January, and I'm trying to see if we'd shown this one. No, we hadn't shown that one yet. And you can see a little bit of the tension there because Louis Armstrong was not really domesticated, was he?
No.
Not easily, at least.
No. Well, I guess Lucille finally got him housebroken, the fourth wife, but Lil didn't.
Now, the third wife isn't mentioned at all. Was that a short-lived marriage, or?
She's mentioned in the script. That was Alpha.
Yeah, no, but I mean, we're not mentioning her tonight. But was she before the final wife? What was the story?
Alpha is the woman of mystery. She starts. She's the other woman. She was younger. She was a dancer, and she was totally infatuated with Louis at a time when his celebrity was blowing up, but also when Lil was really cracking the whip and correcting his grammar and on top of him. And Alpha was just, happy to be with him. So he juggles the two of them for a few years, and finally in 31, he separates with Lil. And from 31 to 38, he travels the world with Alpha. They live in Europe together. He writes letters about her. He is, the two of them were fashion plates. So in 38, yeah. Joe?
And she's Mrs. Louis Armstrong to the world.
Exactly.
She used Lil's name, Mrs. Louis Armstrong. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and that was before they were married. So
Right.
eventually, Lil gives Lewis a divorce in '38, and he marries Alpha. But they hit the rocks quickly. The way Lewis told it, I mean, Alpha used to drink heavily, and when she would drink, she would go after his lips, which was the one thing he was petrified about. So they had physical altercations. All she wanted, again, this is Lewis's side of the story, but she wanted money for foxes and furs and diamond rings and the whole thing. And eventually, Alpha cheats on Lewis with the drummer Cliff Lehman. And even though Lewis was a serial cheater, there was, he could not stand to live with the fact that this woman did that to him. So that was the cause of their divorce. But the interesting part is Lewis always said that he remained friendly, even with Daisy, the prostitute in New Orleans. He remained friendly with her. Him and Lil had some tension. They remained friendly. Alpha disappears from the face of the earth. He writes the song "Someday You'll Be Sorry," dedicates it to Alpha. In 1954, he writes an article for Ebony in which he goes through all of his wives, and he mentions that Alpha is dead. And it turns out Alpha didn't die until 1960. she was alive and well in 1954, but there was no reconciliation.
That brings up a story about Louis Armstrong, and that he would tell lies so often that he would just begin to believe that they were actually true, and that he would swear that they actually. So a lot of times he would just invent things, and it would be a small lie at first, and then it would spin into a larger lie. Let me see if I got a couple more of these to show for the production. Tell me a little bit more about this. That's in the background there. You've got Lil.
The song is "Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey," and he's singing "Let Me Come Home, Miss Lily, Let Me Come Home," and the ensemble is at the end of it. You know you're to blame. Ain't that a shame? And the ensemble sings to her, "Why would you want him to come home?" And so it's I'm not a singer, but that's what's going on there. It's the ensemble male who plays Zudi and all the other male roles,
right?
And it's the ensemble female who plays May Brady and May Alex and his girlfriend Fanny when he was in New York, and a few others.
And that's a lady that plays her mom.
Desi, yeah, that's Yvonne Lyles. She plays Desi, and that's Lil. They're singing their "Ain't We Got Fun," I think is the number there. I'm not quite sure.
Isn't that funny? Now, a lot of people, and Ricky knows this for a fact. Obviously, there's Lil and Louie, and in nicer days. But when she was replaced in the Hot Fives, she was replaced by Eubie Blake. That's correct?
No, Earl Hines.
Earl Hines. Earl Father Hines. Okay, that's what it was.
Well, he wasn't called Father yet then.
But yeah,
it was Earl Hines.
Earl Hines. Yeah, another famous musician. And then this is a
the
scene.
Two women are ditching over their tea. I'm trying to think of the song there. I'll think of it. I'll tell you in a minute. Anyway, you can go ahead.
But I've actually got a clip we're going to show in just a second or two. But I wanted to prepare everybody for that as well.
That song was "Man Is Hard to Find."
So tell me a little bit, Joe, where we're going to go with this in terms of what do you envision doing with this? I know you're looking to see if you can find some people to kind of help you, maybe dramaturgy or whatever that'll maybe work with this.
There's a producer couple in New York. They're now in their 80s, and that doesn't mean they're over the hill because they were about to open a show in Seattle until coronavirus hit. They did win. They won a Lucille Lortel Award for a show of Jelly Roll, which from some of your people down there were involved with that. And it was called Jelly Roll, the Music and the Man, and they won the Lucille Lortel Award for Outstanding Musical and the Outer Critics Circle Award for Outstanding New Off-Broadway Musical. And anyway, Mike and Barbara are determined, God bless them, to get the show put together. And Mike was putting together a 6-city tour for this fall. We were lining up venues and just ready to start casting when coronavirus hit. And now he's trying to put a team together. Now he's contacting people. He was so excited because one of his friends runs a theater company on the Jersey Shore. And he said to me, he's put up a tent. They're performing in a tent, and the actors are all in residence, so they don't have to do a 14-day quarantine. I said, how many of them are Black? So that was the end of that one, because Little Louie has an all-Black cast.
Right.
But he's still putting a team together, and I'm helping wherever I can, and I'm excited by their excitement. It's really kind of nice to have somebody put that kind of confidence in your work. It feels good, even in the era of coronavirus.
Let me go ahead and see if I can share this out now for everybody so that they can see this.
That's a song by Randy Sankey. And that's his take on.
Yeah, I think the sound has to be shared out. I'm sorry about that, but anyway, that's actually the whole piece, isn't it? Instead of the clip that I was.
Yeah, you wanted to use the clips.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you sent me too many emails, so I couldn't find it. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Maybe. Well, anyway, yeah. The piece you sent me was the whole thing there, unfortunately, but. I'm not seeing the links there. I know they're suggested there, but
no. If you go down in that message, it says here are 3 suggested links.
Right. Okay. I see where they. Okay. I see. So in other words, that's the spot, but they're not queued up. Yeah. So we won't have time to get to. Let me see what I can do. I'm going to put something. I'll just put something in the middle of it. We'll just start it in the middle, and that's the way it's going to have to be. Let me. I think let me get that going.
52 minutes in, I think, was Chic of Araby, right?
All right. Let me see what I can do to grab that again. And I'll make sure that I do my best to get this up for everybody. So let's see if that comes up. I know that I need to get this there, and I need to go here, and I need to go one more spot here, screen, and then I got to go here, and then go here, and then all right, now it'll go. And we'll go 52 minutes, you said?
Somewhere around there, I think it was.
Let's see, 52 minutes, 52, 50.
It's past that. The timestamp is on that email with the link. Oh,
okay. Whoops.
There's lots of silly things you can do with it. I'm gonna put the brushes around.
Now that's her with her mom.
Yeah. Come on in, Louis. She'll be right out.
And there's Ken Salvo, who sent us a note tonight.
I'm the Sheik of Araby. Your love belongs to me. At night when you're asleep, oh baby, into your tent I'll creep.
Now I can talk it. The stars that shine above,
look at them up there, baby.
to light our way
There you go. All right. Very nice. So that's a little bit of a taste of what she's done. And again, I can't tell you, it's very enjoyable. I again, love to learn as I'm watching it. Very, very well researched, Joe. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Ricky, I can only tell you that we are looking forward to seeing this, more or less refined a little bit more, that they're going to come out with, as many of the plays that are done nowadays. They're in workshops, they get refined, they go out to another workshop, they have more that are done with them. So hopefully this will be not the first time we get to see that. I believe that we had one of our fellow critics said, Marie Kilker said she wished somebody would pick up the play with the music there. And you are correct, Marie. I hope that they will. And again, I hope to see you, Marie, at one of the future Theater Critics Association meetings. Always glad to see you there. Ricky, thank you again for being here for the first of 2 visits. We've come to the end of our trail, but I think I got all the pictures in, Joe. I'm pretty sure.
I guess you did.
And let me just say that I really appreciate your sharing this. I know this work will be seen in more occasions to come, and that we will know more about Lil and Satchmo as the months and hopefully years come out, where the theaters open up and we'll be able to see some more things. So again, I want to thank everybody for being out there tonight. And Ricky, I want to thank you for lending a lot of authenticity and credibility to our talk tonight, and the kind words about the article notwithstanding, the checks in the mail. Thank you very much. And we'll hopefully catch up with you again. I want to thank you for being. I'm going to ask your patience just stick around for a little bit. Joe, thank you very much for being with us. And
I do just want to thank the director who took over at the last minute, Harry Bryce. And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. I want to just let everybody know that if they need to reach you, that they can do so. I've given it out a little bit before, but they can reach you at the website and your email. And again, Joe Morel, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you
the play
so much.
is called Lil and Satchmo, and I want to thank you for making this a pleasurable night for me. Again, my name is Alan Mason, and again, this is NOLA Theater Talk. We again broadcast every Monday and Friday. If you have a chance to check us out on the various sites that we're broadcasting to, including the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, which you can become a member of if you'd like to. And if not, just watch it on theatercriticism.com's Facebook page or on YouTube. And again, that's it for tonight. Monday night, we have a reading of Rob Florence's Katrina's Path. 2 of the people who are portraying 6 of the characters, the actual people, Sidney Smith and Rudy Rasmussen, and then a number of other wonderfully talented people like Troy Poplis and Troy Bichet and Janet Shea and Wilbert L. Williams will also be involved in the production. And I hope I didn't leave anybody out, but if I did, please forgive me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you at the theater.